Well, I knew there would have to be at least one screw up. Gotta fix it.
Welcome to our kitchen. We just remodeled the entire kitchen. New cabinets, we added backsplash, new countertops. We even went as far as replacing all the appliances. There's just one thing left. These hideous doors. These are original with the house. We don't like them. Instead of replacing them, we decided to do something way more cost effective. What's up, y'all? My name's Andy. This is EPS Garage. Today we will not be in the garage the entire time because I'll have to make these out in the garage. But I am going to show you what we did, how I did it, the final result, and of course anything I ran along the way, which I don't think there's going to be much. I think this is going to be very simple. And this may save you a headache, and it'll definitely save you money in the future if you're in the same situation as me with your pantry doors. As the remodel was about to go down, we were looking at totally replacing these cabinets with brand new ones. Our contractor was helping us find some. We were looking. We were not finding anything in this size. It was going to be difficult. Going to need to do custom cabinets, and that was going to be downright expensive. My wife got online, did a little bit of internet exploring, and she came across an idea. Her idea was to totally revamp the doors we already have, turn them into something that we want and that we're proud of. Of course, I said I could do it, and it'll give me a cool video. At least I hope it's cool. Hope y'all think it's cool. So let's get out there and get started on these and see what we can come up with. I really hope they turn out good because I don't like sleeping on the couch. So cross your fingers.
First thing you gotta do is remove the doors. I started by just taking off one door. That way I could get it out there, get it set up, see what I need to do. And then, I'll come get the second door later on. Removing these hideous knobs that we've hated forever felt pretty good. I went ahead and measured out one board to the actual length. Then, taking the excess piece, I went ahead and cut it up into individual 3 or 4 inch long pieces. And I was going to use these as kind of like little, I don't know what you'd call them, I guess guides or whatever, kind of show me how I wanted to lay out the long boards. This way I knew whether I wanted to make some thinner, how thinner, or do I need to make several thinner, or just one thinner. It kind of gave me an idea how I was going to lay out the rest of the boards. Now that I got my final measurement for the length, 79.5 inches, I could go ahead and cut them all to size. You'll notice that on my fence here, I use a little stop. I just discussed this in my riving knife video that came out a couple weeks ago, and this will help prevent kickback so it doesn't bind between the fence. Make sure that if you're ever using your miter gauge and your fence in combination, you have that spacer there. I linked that little special clamp if you're ever interested in it. But from here, I just went ahead and cut them all to length. Thanks to my little trial fit up with those mock boards, I knew that I was going to need 2 boards 1 inch wide, same length as the other boards, to fill the door space. So I set my table saw up to do that, and I ripped me a couple 1 inch pieces.
I think I got this figured out now. I've been figuring stuff out. I cut them to size, which was 79.5 inches. I've decided I'm going to do 3 boards spaced at 1/16 of an inch. I'm using these little shims, y'all. These are awesome. If you don't have a set of these in your shop, I link them in every one of my videos. I use these all the time. I suggest getting you a set. They're not expensive. But anyways, I'm going to use the 1/16 inch gap. I am going to end up round overing everything. I think it's going to give it a better look, in my opinion. I am going to do a cross board. I think for now, I'm going to do it at the hinges, one here and one at the top. May add one in the middle. Don't know yet. I'll get with the wife on that. The wife did tell me that I can leave the rest white, the edge and the back of the door. I think that'll look fine. No, we're not worried about that. I can always paint it brown or something later if we don't like the way it looks. And as far as stain, I'm going to do a dark espresso to match our cabinets. So that's basically it. Oh, attaching them to the door. I've been kind of running this through my head because I get all paranoid about expansion and contraction. So I want to use some glue, but I don't think I'm going to spread the glue all the way across. I'm just going to do a bead down the middle, and then I'm going to use a couple screws in each one to allow the board at least some expansion and contraction without damaging anything. I don't know. I hope that'll work. So that's the plan. I'm gonna get back to it, see how these turn out. Hopefully I can finish it in one day.
Now, since there was not going to be a wood-to-wood bond using wood glue, I went ahead and took 60 grit sandpaper in my orbital sander, and I sanded down the entire front side of the door. And I did this to give it what we like to call in the coatings world a profile, something to stick to. Otherwise, the door is really slick, and I was afraid the adhesive wouldn't stick well. After prepping the door, I needed to plane down these boards. I don't have a bandsaw, so the only way I can do this is lose a lot of lumber by planing them down to size. These boards were 3/4 inch thick, way too big and clunky, and I needed them a low profile. I wanted them to stick below the hinges. That was my goal here. So I went ahead and planed them all down to the same size. It was somewhere around 3/8 of an inch was my goal. Now that I got them all planed down, I wanted to do a dry fit, and basically I just set them up there exactly how they were gonna set when I glued them up after they were stained and everything else. I wanted to make sure that the profile was low enough for the hinges and everything else. And as you can see here, I was happy with how they set below the hinge. This would allow me to put those cross boards on there and still be below the hinge profile, so the door's not big and bulky. Just taking measurements for my cross pieces. They ended up being somewhere around like 18 inches. Yes, I am writing measurements on my tape measure. Cutting these boards down. Ate a lot of sawdust. Still coming out of that bag. Geez, look at that. One full 50-gallon trash bag full. I wish I could have just cut these boards down with a bandsaw, but I don't have room. I decided on my cross boards that I wanted to put a little chamfer on each end of them. I don't know, I just thought it made them look good. So I think I set it at like 60, or I guess it'd be 30 degrees, and put a little chamfer on each end of them. This was a little test up with my round over bit on my router. I just wanted to make sure I was gonna like the result, and I did. So I set up my router table, got it ready, and I started rounding over all the edges of the boards. I didn't do the ends of the boards, just the long edges. Something to note here is I like to make sure that there's features on my boards that are gonna be showing, like these knots. Nothing crazy exciting here, just everybody's favorite, you know, sandpaper, sanding, love it. But I went to 220 grit on these. I wanted a nice smooth finish. Using Minwax Espresso Stain, I went ahead and put my gloves on, popped open the can, stirred it well, don't shake. And I use a white rag. I prefer the rag method. I feel like I can get it on evenly and I don't get any blotchiness. I don't ever seem to have trouble with blotchiness when applying stain.
I got the boards cut, got the boards stained, they're planed, all that good stuff is done. I think I'm gonna go ahead and glue them. When I was sanding this, there's no way of getting all this white paint off. I'm gonna go ahead and use a heavy duty construction adhesive to run a bead down the middle of each board, place them on here. I'm gonna go ahead and clamp them. I've got these 2x4s that I use for other things that have tape on them. Not that I really need the tape, but they're gonna put even pressure across the entire thing, let them set overnight. And then tomorrow I can add some screws and kind of decorate the doors and then put the clear coat. And that should be about it.
As I flip the boards over, it's important to make sure you keep them even to the references you want to keep them even with, which in my case, I wanted to keep them even with the bottom of the door and the edge of the door. Once you get that first one set up nice and even where you want it, you can clamp it and go ahead and set up the rest to push up against that one. That's how I did it. Worked out well for me.
I'm gonna let this dry overnight. I'm still not sure about the screws, whether they're gonna help at all or not, because you know, the cover of the door's so thin. It's like an 1/8 inch. I don't know if they're gonna grab hold of or anything. I may either put them in just for a little bit extra security and aesthetics to make it look like, you know, nice neat screws across, or I may hide the screws underneath the top pieces that I'm gonna put over the door. These will be like that. Not sure yet. Crazy windy today. I just got back from a little work trip. While I was on my work trip, the glue up was drying, so I'm curious to see how it held up with the industrial adhesive. Let's check it out.
Overall, I was pretty happy with it, but there was one little problem and I was going to need to fix it.
Overall, really happy with how they're on here. They seem very, very secure. The only problem was where two of my cauls were going across. I guess I didn't wait long enough for the stain to dry. I was kind of in a hurry to get it clamped up. My fault. Left these like noticeable lines, I guess, where maybe it squeezed out some stain through the pores of the wood. Easy fix. All I did is I took some 220 sandpaper on my orbital sander. I buffed them out where the lines weren't really there, and then I put some more stain on the door, and voila, looks great.
Now that I got the first door done and I kind of had an idea what I was doing, I went ahead and did this entire process all over again. This is the last part of the assembly process. I put the doors both side by side evenly on my table workbench, and I wanted to make sure they were even with each other. Then from there, I used Tight Bond quick and thick type glue. It's a multi-surface glue. I use it in a lot of applications, and it dries clear. Then from there, I clamped them in place, and I applied one screw over each of the vertical slats, and to me that was going to be plenty enough to hold all of this together. And I did the same process on both doors, aligning them to each other. Before applying my finish, I went ahead and took some shop air, blew down the doors really well, and then gave them a good wipe with a clean cloth.
Almost done. For the final finish, I have decided to go with polyacrylic. I use this quite a bit. It's a water-based, kind of like a polyurethane, only it's water-based. Goes on really easy. All I use is a synthetic bristle brush, and I coat it on. There's not a whole lot of skill involved. I mean, there is some skill. You don't want to keep going over the same spot, stuff like that. But you put on a nice even coat, let it dry for a while, and you can put on more coats on top of that. Basically just follow the instructions on the can. So that's what I'm doing next. Okay, now I'm ready.
Main thing is don't go back over with your brush on anywhere that's kind of getting tacky and dry. Keep it wet and it'll dry clear even though it's a little kind of cloudy.
Quick tip, whenever you're dealing with water-based acrylic paint, any type of water-based paint, dampen a rag like that, and you can stick this in the refrigerator. If you're going to come back out soon, you can just leave it out if it's not going to dry out. But if you're going to leave it overnight or anything like that, put this in the refrigerator, and tomorrow you can start right back off where you left off. You don't have to clean your brush, you don't have to do any of that. Instructions said let this dry for minimum 2 hours. They say on here do not use steel wool multiple times, so my assumption is do not use steel wool, this product, just a note. And it says lightly sand to 220. I think 220 is too aggressive. In my opinion, it's such a light coat, you basically remove the coating. What I've found works really well, and this is, I learned this from Steve at Woodworking for Mere Mortals, is craft paper. I'll go over this with craft paper, all over it, give it a good dusting off. Boom, ready for the second coat.
The second coat went on well, no issues. You just really got to watch that brushing and not overbrush it and create little bubbles that'll dry.
Third, and what should be my final application, I am going to now use 500 grit because it has 2 coats on it. So this shouldn't affect it and go through those 2 coats. Very lightly going over it and just removing any sharps or bumps, anything like that you can feel with your hand. Really smooth it out. Then I'll put that 3rd coat on real nice and even. And then once that 3rd coat dries, I'll go back to the craft paper and give it a final buff, and then we can hang these doors.
And with the 500 grit, I'm going over it very lightly and with the other hand feeling for bumps. Then from there, I can wipe it off and start applying the finish. Finish went on really well for the 3rd coat, and I had no issues with it at all. For cleanliness reasons, we decided to caulk between the gaps. This will just make it easy to wipe down the door and nothing can get in those cracks and collect over time. Just make it easier to wipe down, that's all. That's a caulk bead. If you're having to use your finger after you caulk something, you're just making a mess and you're doing it wrong. Sorry, y'all, a little trash talking, I guess. Well, I knew there would have to be at least one screw up. Gotta fix it. Well, that's what I get for trash talking, I guess. So anyways, the boards, I let them come over the edge of the board so they kind of hit when they were closing after I hung them. Not a big deal. I sanded them down, put some stain, went ahead and applied a coat of poly to them, let them dry, and it was done. Very quick, easy fix, and you couldn't even tell. While my jacked up door was drying, I went ahead and decided to apply the handle to the other door that was already hung. Very simple, figured out where I wanted my placement at. Then I drilled my first hole using a level, try to drill straight all the way through the door. And then with 7 1/8 hole center, I marked that. And then I drilled that second hole to make sure that it was straight using a level. From there, the hardware was pretty simple. It was a backing plate, screw, and they give you an Allen wrench. Very easy. And then of course I gave it a final check with the level, make sure it was good. For the second handle, I went ahead and made sure it was level with the one I already applied. Drilled my holes, did a little bit different. Drilled the first hole on the top all the way through, and then I drilled the second hole from each side. Worked out good.
All right, I do not think I'm gonna be sleeping on the couch anytime soon. Not that she really does that, y'all. But I am very happy with how they turned out. They really bring the kitchen finally together after the remodel. And speaking of that, I want to give a special shout out to Laying Style Remodeling LLC. Sean, the owner, did a phenomenal job contracting this. It was like a 9-day build, y'all. If you're in the DFW area, I highly recommend them. I'll link all their information in the description. As far as the doors go, had that couple little hiccups. The one hiccup at the top where they were kind of hitting each other, you know, that was just my fault. I didn't watch the top, and I let that one board when I clamped them up in glue kind of come over, and I just had to sand that down, restain it, put a coat of poly on it. Really easy fix, just kind of annoying. That's all it was. So if you're gonna do this, just watch out for that aspect of it. Other than that, y'all feel free to comment, like, subscribe. All that stuff helps my channel out and is greatly appreciated by me. I'll see y'all next time.